Welcome to the Earthworks podcast, where our team will share the jargon of carbon from many of our turf friends from the past 30 years.
Hi, everybody. I'm Joel Simmons, and this is the Earthworks podcast. And today I'm with a friend of many years and somebody who has kind of followed me around, or maybe I followed you around. I'm not sure, but I'm with Mr. Matt Muhlenbruch, who is currently at Hillcrest Country Club out in Los Angeles. How is the weather in Los Angeles these days? You're not getting monsoons like they are in Phoenix now, right?
No monsoons. We can't get anybody to listen to our prayers for rain, other than a little spit the other day.
So what's the rain? What's it been so far this year?
Roughly 4.5 inches of rain.
Woohoo! I think we'll have that. We'll have that here in New Jersey or in Pennsylvania probably between now and tomorrow at noon.
I'm jealous.
Yes, yeah, I wish I could send you some, but it's been that way. Yeah,
but
it's been a crazy.
It's actually fairly mild right now. I mean, we were hot and humid in June and July, but it seemed to have given us a little bit of a break. But we're coastal, so we get some of that cooling effect at night, which is nice.
So what are your night temperatures in LA?
Right now, probably 65 to 68.
There's a lot of people that are listening to us right now that hate you.
Yes.
you know, especially here in the Mid-Atlantic where you are familiar. And that's probably why you're in LA, because you ran away from the Mid-Atlantic, because you know what our summers can be like out here.
Boy, I hate the way you frame that, but there was you could hear the tires screeching out Route 80.
Yes, exactly. So let's talk about you. Some of these things I just found out, and most of which I knew, but you've certainly got a really lousy resume. And as I said to you earlier, you've really worked with some pretty god awful people in your career that that I've known. You're a Jersey boy, which is why I called you today and said, hey, I need a Jersey guy on this podcast because it's been a while and I haven't had a Jersey guy. But you're from I guess what we call upstate New Jersey, right? Up in that northern corner of the state. Born and raised?
Lots of lakes. What was that?
Born and raised in that area?
Yeah, born and raised in New Jersey.
And decided to leave the state to go to college, which is, I thought, illegal. I thought you had to go to Rutgers. And if you had gone to Rutgers actually at that time, you would have been able to sit through my class, and I would have been able to brainwash you even further than I have in the years that you've been with us.
But it's just been a few years earlier.
Yeah, exactly. But you were smart enough to go to my alma mater at Penn State and actually got a BS degree. Was it in turf or was it in?
Yeah, it was the turf grass science program there.
So you had all the standard Penn State guys as teachers. Watchke, I'm sure, was there still at the time.
Watchke was there. The famous weed walks that we took.
Right. Who'd you have for entomology? Do you remember? Paul Heller?
No, it wasn't Paul Heller.
And then somebody had left. Paul Heller was a wonderful entomologist, and there was a gentleman there when I was there. I'm going to age myself, Dave Shetlar, who ended up going to Ohio State. But they were two of my favorite instructors in my years at Penn State.
I cannot remember my.
That doesn't matter. I don't mean to put you on the spot.
No.
So you got to do a lot of a couple internships, I guess, with two of my favorite people in the business. One was Bruce Cattail, and then the other one was Kevin Pryzeski, who's also a East Coaster who hightailed it out of this part of the world, mostly to get away from the weather. But I think more importantly, Kevin left to get close to wine. But you had a chance to work with both of those guys as interns. Is that what you were? Where were you with Bruce?
I was with Bruce at Matitaconk National.
Wow, beautiful club.
Oh, it was great. It was really my first experience with a multi-course facility for one, and it was also a high-end golf course. I was working at the local municipal golf course when I was a kid in the summers and got the inspiration to get into this funny business, and found an internship on gcsa.com, .org, and wound up working with Bruce for summer. And it was really eye-opening, when you go from municipal level golf course to the multi-course facility and crew of 40 and 50 and all the real science behind it. It was eye-opening. It was really exciting.
So what was it? I mean, Bruce had to be completely different than what you were used to in a smaller club, right? Because Bruce is pretty bright, pretty intense.
Basically, it was me and 3 retired guys.
Oh, great!
That was the operation, as a lot of those are, and then to go to something as sophisticated as MidAtlantic and working for a guy like Bruce was really just eye-opening. And Bruce took a lot of time, him and his assistants took a lot of time with the interns, which was really the start of kind of how you really learn the business and how important mentorship is, and creating those programs.
Yeah, and Bruce is he's a teacher. I mean, I actually spent time with him at Rutgers. He was an instructor when I was there, but always a class act. And everybody that I've ever talked to worked with him always said they learned an awful lot from Bruce. I mean, he was really a student, and probably still is a student of this business. I mean, he's always paid a lot of attention, and Bruce and I spent a lot of time talking about carbon-based fertility and things of that nature, and all that fun stuff. And then unfortunately you had to work with Pryzeski at Cattail Creek.
No, I worked for Kevin out at Stone Tree.
Oh, he had already gotten out to California.
Yeah, I had bugged Bruce about where my next internship was going to be, and I wanted to go out west, and just always had the bug to move out west and see what it was like. And originally was trying to go anywhere really, and Kevin responded to my request, and there was a great friendship forged from then on. Friendship. I still talk to Kevin quite a bit. He's a great guy.
Yeah. And again, another one of my favorite people in this business. And I get to spend at least often we have a nice meal out in San Francisco when I go out to visit him. But it's always fun to see Kevin.
So absolutely, restaurants and wine are
restaurant and wine. Hey, nothing wrong with that, right? It's always he's usually one of my first calls when I get out there. Okay, I'm coming out on this date. Can you set up a nice meal? There's usually 3 or 4 of us. Sometimes it was one of your other bosses, Mr. Bastis, or Mr. Finland would also join us for those little dinners in San Francisco. So again, we've weaved this web that you and I have been kind of hanging around in for a while. So you came out of Penn State, and then you went back to work with Bruce.
Yeah, he had moved on from MidAtlantic to do a new construction in Colts Neck. At the time, it was called Shadow Isle, and it eventually now is, I believe, Trump Colts Neck.
Colts Neck, right?
Yeah, I think that was one of his latest purchases. But yeah, I worked there for roughly 2 years. It left just before the opening and moved to the MidAtlantic.
Right.
Which
went from the fire from the firing ban into the fire directly.
Yeah.
But when you were at Shadow, we were working with Bruce doing some construction there. So you were just telling me that you were breathing in Renovate as they were applying it to the course at Shadow Isle. And I think we brought in bags.
I was applying it on greens. That was one of my.
So he didn't like you, or how did you draw that straw? Because it was not probably the most pleasant of all the jobs.
Oh, I mean, whether he liked me or not, it was a good sales job. Oh, you really gotta know what goes into the greens on a new construction.
So he walked you through all that stuff in that bag and made you spread it, and you breathed it, and then
really get an intimate experience with growing. I mean, that was my career, to do a new construction, to see everything that goes underground, from the hardware and even to the fertility, and how you start dealing with sand-based greens, from aggregates to fertility and growing them all in. It was, again, a really mind-blowing.
That was your first experience in construction, I assume. Yeah.
Yeah, that was my first.
You've actually got quite a bit of construction background.
I always
pretty much everywhere.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you went from there out to the MidAtlantic, which is the best place in the country to grow grass, especially this time of year. And I'm sure enjoyed every minute of those summers.
I did enjoy it. I really did. But it was, as I look back on it, I'm like, what a great place to be an assistant and learn and not be working for your job every summer.
Right. Exactly.
But no, it's all the respect in the world to the guys that go in and do that every year. I mean, it's the most challenging area you can grow any cool season grass.
Yeah, it's funny. I mean, really being in the middle of it where I am, and my whole career has really been focused in that Washington, D.C. Cattail Creek is just north of Washington, D.C. in Maryland, but you're still in the heart of the Mid-Atlantic.
Yeah.
Were those tough years while you were there?
Absolutely. But there were, I mean, I don't even know if I knew any better at that time. It was
Good.
22, and I was working, I mean, I worked for Steve Lutz, who was really, really strong agronomically. And I mean, I still talk to Steve quite a bit.
Yeah.
And it was really, really probably the backbone of my agronomic experience. Really, I mean, everything may be less challenging in certain respects, but a lot of that sense of heat, humidity, disease pressure is.
How old was Cattail when you were there? How old was the course? Probably not 10 years, right?
Maybe 10.
Yeah.
Maybe 10. It was pretty well grown. I mean, it was definitely it was maybe, I'm trying to think.
I think it was built in the late 90s.
Yeah.
So you were there probably 10 years later.
2004, 2003.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, I remember when that course was built, but so were you the guy on the spray rig every day in the summer?
There was some times on the spray rig, but it was definitely a mission in scouting and water management and disease management, which was fascinating.
You think about it, there's nowhere you can go but up from there, I mean, you can't go anywhere. If you're in the Mid-Atlantic, I mean, it's funny because we talk about it here and you've probably been part of these conversations, but we talk about it and it's like, why would you hire anybody for the Mid-Atlantic that hasn't worked in the Mid-Atlantic or at least worked in, say, St. Louis, which is almost as bad, but it's Bermuda grass. But, you come in from somewhere, anywhere, even from Northern Virginia, New Jersey or New England into the Mid-Atlantic, and it's like nothing that you've ever seen. I mean, you lived it for a bunch of years. So,
yeah, I mean, I think that local experience is invaluable. I mean, it's priceless. You can't really, that would be a very challenging area to just go into, even after a couple of years there. I've been out of there for a long time, but to go back there would be, you're starting over. I mean,
how much money would it take you to come back to the Mid-Atlantic right now?
What's that?
How much money would it take to get you back to the Mid-Atlantic right now?
I don't know. I don't think they could print enough.
I was going to say there's probably not enough made yet. So
I really enjoyed living in Maryland. I think it's a beautiful place to live and lots to do. And but I don't know if I would want to be growing grass there. Yeah,
no, I grew up in Maryland, and of course I learned to eat crabs and drink natty bows. But natty bows and hard shell crabs. And there was a law that if you ate crabs, you had to drink beer. So none of my buddies wanted to eat crabs, but we learned really fast because the natty bows were there, and you had to.
I lived in Bethesda, and so every visitor that came to see us see me was the monuments in DC and the Crab Shack. It's like
the Crab Shack, of course.
Crab Shack monument. Crab Shack monument. I don't know. I mean,
so that's really why you left, isn't it? Because you were just sick to death of those things that you had to do.
If I see the Washington Monument
one more time, right? I'm done with it all. So you decided to bag it, and you couldn't get out of town fast enough. You went back to Northern California, where you were interned, and found yourself a home at the Cal Club, huh?
I did, yeah. So Kevin called me, and I told him that I wanted to go back out west eventually, and he said there was a really good opportunity at the Cal Club, working for Thomas Bastis, who's a really great superintendent.
Yep.
And spent it wasn't as long as I would have liked, but I was there for 2 years, and it was just prior to that massive renovation they did.
Oh, so you did not get through the renovation?
No, I didn't, and it's that one construction I missed. Actually.
Yeah, that was a good one too.
It was really spectacular.
Yeah.
It was definitely a tough decision, especially at that time, as I was really looking forward to the construction and working with Thomas on that. But an opportunity came up at the Olympic Club, and the amount of prestige and the things that happen at a big multi-course facility was an opportunity I really couldn't pass up.
So Pat Finland stole you from Thomas Bastis. Now I understand what all that dynamic was at dinners that I've had with the two of them so many times.
Well, I mean, maybe Thomas thinks he did him a favor. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, maybe. And I'll ask him that actually. By the way, both Thomas and Pat Finland have been here on the Earthworks podcast. So
I
you're
saw
in good,
that. I saw that on the list.
you're in good company there. What year did you get to the Olympic Club?
2006.
So you were there way before the Open.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I guess the construction at Cal Club was in later in that. It was 2008, I think.
2008. Yes.
Yeah, somewhere around that. And that really truly was one of the more spectacular constructions. I mean, that's one of those properties that if you knew the Cal Club prior to construction and somebody dropped you into the middle of it after construction, you probably wouldn't know where you were unless you could figure out geographical positions like the airplanes flying over top. But
yeah,
that's how drastic that change was, and it was spectacular. I mean, they did a phenomenal job, and
through the construction, the design, the grassing plan. That was a really, really good, really great project.
And the grassing was quite unique. I know our friend Dave Wilbur had some involvement in that, and and they did fescues all through the place. So it was kind of interesting what was happening. So you're at the Olympic Club with Mr. Finland. Probably a whole bunch of guys that are pretty well known in the industry now at other jobs. Like I assume Justin Mandan was with you.
Yes.
And again, Justin was here with us on the podcast. So
again,
that's why I called you, because I just, you were just the missing link from all these people that we've talked to. So I got to get Matt on here, and of course I've had your assistant Laura Beth on. So I felt really bad that I called her before I called you, and she was wonderful. And you'll have a hard time beating her, because her podcast was one of our biggest listened to podcasts, when the one we did on the Women's Open.
I'm glad that she was a part of that. That was a pretty special.
Yeah, that truly was one of the more spectacular events that had, and I think everybody at the Olympic Club was on it all over, and I just think it was one of the coolest things that Troy did, and Troy Flanagan, and I love the fact that so many women were able to join it, and it was such a great exposure to the value. And she's been on your staff now for a number of years, right?
Yes. So she came from Los Angeles Country Club to Hillcrest. It was my first hire here. It was probably 3 months after I had started, and so she worked through the growing. This was her first major renovation in a leadership role. I think she may have had something to do with the South Course renovation over it.
So she's also got chicken shit at doses from all the amendments that you guys put down.
Oh yeah.
Does she hate me too? I didn't ask her that question. I
think it's you just learn to love 545.
That's smelling it all day long. It's funny because I remember I called you before I interviewed Laura Beth, just to make sure that everything was okay. But your first comment was, "Oh no, she'll be great. She's from Jersey." It's like, oh, perfect. And she is, and she's very funny. She's extremely funny. And I think I just saw a post of hers on Twitter where somebody had brought in a little shovel, and she had her little. I don't know if you saw their Twitter post, but it made me laugh. And if you see her, tell her I said it made me laugh, and it was very good. So you got through the Open at the Olympic Club, so you were part of that team. Along with that crew, and that was an experience for me. Certainly, it was really the first place that I was, maybe one of the first places that I actually got to be a sponsor, and Pat really just took great care of everybody at that, and it was such a wonderful week and a wonderful event. Even though we don't know who won it, but that's
Birdman.
Yes, exactly. But it was really a great week, and you guys did an incredible job. But it was one of the first experiences I personally had of watching that whole process, and I was overwhelmed at how much work was involved with, you guys were, building roads and, shutting down half the property. And, I was overwhelmed with, just the scale of how much you guys had to do and prep for that Open. I mean, that was unbelievable.
Yeah, it was a great experience. I mean, there was, obviously you start feeling the influence of the US Open years in advance before it actually happened.
Right.
With, changes to the golf course, that kind of stuff that is required for the tournament. And we always had construction projects going on at Olympic for years and years and years. And then really, I think that what was mind blowing was that we also planned to renovate the ocean course while we were prepping for the
middle of all this,
while the course was closed. So not only did we have countless semis coming in and dropping off, all of the infrastructure stuff for the Open, we were growing in greens, and there was dozers out there pushing dirt around on the ocean course. We had done 15 greens before the Open, and then finished the last 3 after the last putt drop. Wow. But it was pretty incredible. We had a great team. The management team was really, really strong at that point, and it was the enormity of the whole thing was very shocking when they came in and basically paved over a par 5 so they could have a vendor compound. That's when you kind of get the scale of what you're a part of. And I was the ocean course superintendent at the time, so managing that both of those projects was a really great experience to have to manage a Crow and the USGA and all of their demands. Not that they're not demands, but just that infrastructure piece of it.
Well, there's massive demands,
And myself and the assistant, who's actually the superintendent over at Harding Park now, Jeff Levonick, really divided up the work on that and managed that whole process. And the USGA were great to work with. They have no problem asking you for stuff, but they also have no problem hearing no, at least for most of the stuff.
Who was your USGA contact at that point?
So on the operations side, it was Frank Bussey.
Okay.
Was the day-to-day operations guy, and JP Palacio was kind of his go-to guy.
Right.
JP was there for roughly 2 years before the renovation happened. Before the Open.
Before the Open
/ renovation.
Yeah.
And we had gotten to know him, and it was really one of those once in a lifetime experiences that you get. And we had a lot of managers that were all around the same age, and the USGA team was all around the same age. And when we could, going out in San Francisco, and it was a really, really great bonding experience. And I still talk to a lot of those guys from the USGA ops team. They've moved on to other things. Some of them are still with them, but it was one of those experiences that you probably never get again. But it was top 2 in my career.
Did they know when you got there in 6? Did they know that they were going through all this? Was that already on the books?
I believe they knew in about 2005 that they'd gotten the bid. Okay. And it was just before I started at the Olympic Club, or maybe maybe early. But it seems so far away when you're there in 2006. You're like, 2012. I'm like,
that's forever.
That's so far away, And then all of a sudden it's on you, especially at a place like Olympic that's 45 holes. There's always something going on. There was always we renovated both those golf courses, but we did the lake course. So it wasn't like there was a whole lot of downtime or spare time, where it all went by pretty quick. The 7 years I was there.
How many guys were on the crew at the time?
There was about 45.
Yeah, that's a massive operation.
And then there was a few. Then there was a varying number of interns throughout the years.
I would assume, yeah. And have you been back to the Olympic Club since they did the construction on the shop? Have you seen the new shop?
I have not. And I'm super jealous.
Yeah, I think everybody that ever worked there and working out of a trailer. I mean, that's where you guys. It's where I would find you guys. You'd be in a trailer somewhere, and it's like, wow, this is the Olympic Club.
That was it. Yeah, it was surprising. Even when I went there on my interview, I was like, huh. And then,
we're rebuilding this someday. Maybe 20 years from now. But well,
like 3 or 4 years, we're gonna have a new shop, and then 7 years later.
Well, even Pat, I mean, Pat left before it was all done. So,
Yeah, I mean, those things are hard to get through, and I'm sure there's all kinds of issues.
Well, especially in a place like San Francisco, where there's, I mean, they had all sorts of, problems getting through the paperwork and all that stuff. I have yet to see it either because COVID hit, and I've been sitting here in this room. Nobody lets me out of here very often. And, only just recently have I, been able to go. And it's actually kind of embarrassing because I've just started traveling again, and I booked a flight. I have to go down to San Antonio, and I booked a flight, and I'm taking my vice president from Earthworks here, and she reminded me that I booked it completely backwards. I'm going to San Antonio, but I booked it from San Antonio to Newark and then Newark to San Antonio. I'm like, oh, I guess that probably wouldn't work, would it? So
yeah.
I'm a little rusty. I need some more experience. So getting back on the road, maybe it's a symbol. Maybe they're telling me I really should just stay still and
stay there.
Yeah, don't do anything anymore. You're good. You're done. You've spent your time. You've done it all well. So what was the most memorable part of that whole experience at the Olympic Club? I mean, what do you take out of that most when you think about that experience?
I mean, personally, it was really challenging to manage through all of that, and really challenged how you think about work and process and getting things done. I think professionally, it was the enormity of it, really. I mean, the scale of an event like that, and especially it being on one property. I mean, a lot of places can't accommodate all of the back of house things, so you're not necessarily as involved as you would be at a site at like Olympic. So it was that unique opportunity that I got to meet and be a part of the USGA process, along with our own objectives and our at the club, was really unique experience that I take with me. Efficiencies, it's really the scale of it all, and any other tournament after that just seems so small, right?
Yeah, I can imagine.
It's not. I think it was not realizing how much you don't see when you're watching the Open on TV, how much is actually on site and what goes into that.
And you guys really had a powerhouse of a crew there. I mean, you had guys that are now really top of their game superintendents, and working, with all those, characters and those personalities. That must have been an experience in its own right.
Yeah, I mean, I think that is unique to those large operations, that you have so many people that are similarly educated and motivated and same age and same kind of spot in life as well. So there's a lot of, off property fun and antics that happen as well. And
do tell.
Oh, well, maybe on a different podcast.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's a different podcast.
No, it was that level of camaraderie and the having that many minds in a room can really, really bring up some great ideas. And it's definitely, it can also get to be competitive and all of those other things that come along.
Think so, right? I mean, egos banging heads. I mean, you guys are all, like I said, and I don't mean this to sound critical or pin anybody against this either, but when you've got, I remember being there and getting to know you and Justin and some of the other guys there, and it's just, wow, this is an incredible team of and you could tell, I mean, from my perspective, I'm always looking at, what's going to happen in a couple of years. And it was very clear that all of you guys we're going to find different homes fairly quickly. And that was really Pat's intention anyway, is just to make sure that you guys, had great career paths, and it worked for a lot of you guys. But man, what a team you had there. And I can't imagine it wouldn't have been, at some point, a little headbang in it, again, I'm not trying to stir a pot or anything or get Justin.
No, I'm not going to paint the picture that it was all.
But tell me tell me some good bad stories about Pat Finland. We can embarrass Pat. He won't mind, right? That must have been fun for him. I mean, doing all that, and he and I talked about it here on the podcast, all the work involved. But obviously, at that level, at a club like that, you guys were the guys that were really all, doing all the serious heavy lifting. I mean, Pat was managing it and doing all the, big stuff. But, you guys were really, I didn't realize at the time that how much construction was going on prior to getting just ready for the Open. I mean, just getting ready for a major tournament is huge work for years. And you guys were doing that on top of 5 or 6 other things, like rebuilding everything.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's actually where I had done obviously the construction at Shadow Isle, but also Olympic Club. It was a lot of what I gravitated to was the projects and the construction of it all. And it was, I learned a lot leading those teams on the property like that, and putting myself in that position for the construction, which absolutely helped me after I left there, to realize that, not everybody has that skill set, and it's not always that easy to learn. I mean, you have a place like Olympic that you call it dog years, but you just got, in 7 years that I was there, I mean, we rebuilt two renovations and a major tournament, and I don't know, countless other, Pacific Coast amateur tournaments. And it really was a one-stop shop for all aspects of the turf career.
Yeah, but still, the weather was only 65 degrees every day, every night, so, it's nothing compared to what you were doing out in Baltimore.
No, it was it's cold and wet. I mean, there is.
Yes, exactly.
All of the guys from back east, and I would just talk about 55 degrees being cold, and your blood's getting thin, and
exactly. You're wearing a jacket every day.
Yeah, I'm like, it's August and I have a knit hat on, and I'm like,
right.
It's the coldest, wet. It's like, I used to describe it as, it's like somebody shoved snow down the back of your neck, and that's
right.
like kind of what
you hated it.
Cold and wet, But it was then obviously at the end of August, when you can't take it anymore, the sun clears and you see the Pacific Ocean and the Golden Gate Bridge.
Yeah.
Like, wow.
I mean, even when you were up with Mr. Pryzeski up north of there, Napa, that wasn't the same weather. I mean, that's the thing a lot of people don't understand, that little climate that you lived in there for a bunch of years at the Cal Club and an Olympic, and I guess Poppy Hills was probably a lot different, but certainly the Cal Club and Olympic were that little microclimate. I mean, I remember going out there, and I think it was with Pat, and we'd be driving around, the whole Bay Area, and we'd come from across the bay, and it was 110 degrees, and we get over to the Olympic Club. Pat actually bought me a jacket because it was the middle of summer. I didn't have a jacket. It was freezing. I mean, I'm standing there, just shivering, and I think he just felt really sorry for me. Like, poor guy, what a schmuck. He comes up here without a jacket on,
Of course, the top selling item at the San Francisco Wharf is hooded I Love SF sweatshirt.
Yeah, the sweat with the hoodies. Yeah, exactly.
He comes in shorts, and then they're freezing.
Yeah.
But yeah, the climate up in Marin County, where Kevin was working at the time, it's really nice. Warm days, cool nights. I mean, it's really beautiful. You really didn't have that fog layer that would come in and just kind of sit every day.
Now they just have a fire layer, unfortunately.
Now they have smoke
layer,
fog, and
all the time,
and
now.
all of the water issues that we're all suffering. And
were you at the Olympic Club when was affluent water the mainstay water for you guys at the Olympic Club when you were there? All right, so you were battling all that stuff, and I've certainly worked with them a number of times. And there was a boatload of nitrogen going out with that water every time you guys irrigated.
Yes.
So there was, I mean, I remember always having the conversation, let's just not put any nitrogen out there, because you were getting a pound, every time you turned the irrigation heads on. It was just another chance. But, again, a lot of folks from the East Coast, come, talking to you guys and like, well, that's got to be easy, but it's a great environment for POA, and it's hard to manage POA in that kind of an environment, because it's, I mean, it's all POA. I mean, it's just a nightmare.
Yeah, I mean, coastal California, that's the dominant grass, and trying to keep it out is really very challenging. And you got to remember too, I mean, the water quality out west, and without the rain, you're just constantly fighting high pH and nothing. Really, it's really tough to flush your properties. I mean, properties like Olympic that are really sand based. I mean, you get winter rains, and it cleans up a lot of what the effluent water kind of leaves throughout the year. So you have that benefit, but during a drought, you're really just starting to stack bicarbonates and salts and everything else.
Yeah, and always battling the flush and trying to take care of all that stuff.
Yeah,
and I've said in my whole career, I mean, I've said this in every class that I teach. I think that is the first limiting factor for a superintendent. When you're battling bicarbonates and sodium in your soil, that really trumps everything in terms of agronomics, because with that being the leading force, if you're not taking care of that first, you're always battling sodium induced wilt issues and LDS and all the things that sodium and bicarbonate come to. And if you're not really on top of that game and getting it out of there, it's going to always keep you up at night, which is a big issue for the guys.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with that. I mean, the first thing that I did when I came to Hillcrest and Poppy Hills also was just take a water test.
Yeah.
I mean, it's
smart
the biggest
move.
input you have on a golf course.
Yeah.
West of the Mississippi, there's no other single biggest input that you put out.
I would have probably asked for it in the interview and looked at it and said, no, I'm good. This is good. No, thank you. Let's talk about Poppy Hills, one of my favorite golf courses. So you went there just after the Open. I don't even remember now. I remember when you got there.
The Open was in 2012. In 2013, I started at Poppy Hills.
So Pat got rid of all you guys pretty quickly and scattered all across the area.
Drain plug and everybody.
Yeah, just get out, guys. Get out. You've had your time here now. We're sick of you. Get out of here.
That's right.
So you found Poppy Hills, which tell us about Poppy Hills. And for those that don't know Poppy Hills, it's really a classic place. I mean, it's really pretty cool.
Yeah. So Poppy Hills is in the Del Monte Forest in Pebble Beach, inside the gates. It's one of the lesser known golf courses in there. It's owned by the Northern California Golf Association.
Yeah.
And they host a lot of their tournaments there. So it's not actually part of the Pebble Beach company, but it's in Pebble. And so
you worked for the association? Is that who you were employed by?
Yeah. So the association, the way it's structured is they basically, Poppy Hills is a for-profit company. It's its own company, but yes, there's the major shareholder. Like NCGA owns that company.
Right.
So that's kind of dividing line. But yes, so indirectly, but directly worked for the NCGA.
So did they have what was the actual management structure? You had a GM or
Yeah, there was a general manager over Poppy Hills, and they own another property in Livermore called Poppy Ridge, which is a 27-hole facility in the East Bay of
right. So you get to Poppy Hills and you just go right back into the whole let's rip the place up and have some more fun.
Yes. So I
didn't have enough of that already for the last 6 years of the Olympics.
I think that maybe a third of it was already built and ready for seating.
Yeah.
But they had to delay the seating on it because of water purposes.
Yeah.
So the way it's a unique situation, and there's 7 golf courses inside the Del Monte Forest that all share one water source. It's reclaimed water from Carmel and Pebble and all these other areas. And they have a very limited amount of water and a lot of golf in the area. So what had to happen, the way it was built, the plant was going to be able to take 2 million gallons of wastewater a night, process it, and send it out to the golf courses. But years and years and years of water conservation in the area, now they're down to 1 million gallons a night, plus a reservoir. So every year in that area, the golf courses are really under a lot of risk of running out of water. And throughout the year, they have to change either the quality of the water or limit the volume of water for the golf course, for each golf course. So it gets to be a little wheeling and dealing. And for the project at Poppy Hills, what they did was basically each golf course gets a nightly allocation. And then so everybody in every other property reduced their nightly average so that Poppy Hills could have enough water to grow the place in, because obviously growing takes more water.
Right, exactly.
And
did they know that? Did they know that? Was that all worked out prior to you guys doing it? I assume it was
by the superintendents and the organizations that they would do that for
the superintendents were making those decisions. The guys,
they had a lot of influence on.
Oh, good.
That.
Oh, I didn't know that. I never knew
they were
that.
very influential on that, and obviously all the parties that B had to agree to it, but there was a lot of influence on there, and that's just working in that area. I mean, it was amongst some of the best superintendents in the country, really.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
You had sitting down and discussing water and having all of that FaceTime with guys like Bob Zoller, Jeff Marco, Chris Dahlheimer.
Yeah.
Bob Yo, Jeff Steen. I was the youngest one. And then, as far as the way the structure is, you have a chairman of the water committee, and they had a meeting when I was on vacation. I came back and I was the chairman. The least desired job
and this is a chairman of superintendents. Is that what this was?
Yeah, there's all of the entities that regulate the water in there in the forest, and you represent. You kind of lead the meetings, and
I could see those guys. I could see that crew of guys saying, "Oh, I know who can be the chairman next. He's not here right now.
Don't ever miss a meeting."
Yeah, don't exactly. Not with that crew of guys. I can see that pretty quickly. It's either Dahlhammer or Marco probably throwing you under the bus.
Yeah, I think it was just I was voluntold that was my job.
Yeah, I bet.
But yeah, the growing was really we did have a drought during that time.
I remember.
All of the water was controlled. It was a really smooth grow in, and we had a great contractor with Frontier, and we had the person on site was Tom Hughesgen, who used to run Pebble Beach years and years ago.
I didn't know if I knew that. I knew Tom fairly well back in those days.
Superintendent who was working for the contractor at the time, running the construction, and I mean, I couldn't have thought of a better situation to walk into for my first
I'm not sure I ever knew that. Maybe I did. Yeah. Maybe I ran into him there. Tom had gone from Pebble out to like Colorado, right?
Yeah, he had bounced around a little bit. He was in Colorado. Yeah. He came to back to the Pebble Beach area.
Yeah, and
It was. I mean, a great ally to have on the property. A guy like that.
Well, you're just a name dropper, man. That's all. You got all these names on your resume and all these people you've been working with. It's a great experience. That's why you're here. That's why we're talking to you.
I've been very, very fortunate of the people that I've been around and worked with and for. And so
the plan at Poppy Hills? There was an architect involved and
it was all that stuff. Course renovation, and a lot of it was around turf reduction.
Okay. Because of environmentalism. You're trying to
reduce the water.
Yep. I remember having conversations with you about that during Poppy.
So it was Robert Trent Jones Jr., RTJ2.
Bobby,
firm. And it was they did the original design and they came back and redid it. And it was also the soils, they were really heavy clay. Yep. So they sand capped the property to get away from that.
I remember that.
And it was, so they did a turf reduction and sand cap on the project. And it was a very, very smooth grow in. My first time with growing in a sand cap. And
so how was that? How would you talk about that to somebody that's never done a sand cap project like that?
Sure. I mean, I think the sand cap part of it's great to have a sand cap. But it's also, to me, it was like a little bit of a tricky grow in because one, you're losing nitrogen and
constantly,
leaching K and all of those things. But you also have to be careful not to lose the sand cap and over fertilize.
Yeah.
With soils that aren't supporting enough turf grass for play. And so it was a longer grow in because you want to make sure that you're not building so much thatch that you effectively lose the benefit.
Carbon-based fertility, man. That's keep the seed end ratio.
We did. We incorporated a lot of that into what we were doing on the property, but for me, it felt like it took a little longer to be in the subsequent years to be good, or at least the density wasn't quite there.
Think about it. You're dealing in a CEC of nothing. I mean, how deep was that cap? It was 8 inches.
It was 4 to 5 inches.
Oh, okay. I thought it was deeper than that.
No, so part of it was in order to get we figured that if you did a 4-inch sand cap, you could still have an aggressive top dressing program in the first few years to eventually get up to the 6 inches of that recommendation.
Did you ever run into issues with water hitting that soil and then just kind of sitting there and getting anaerobic?
Yeah, there was some in areas where, it'd be low lying that maybe drainage was a little bit of an afterthought in some areas that you'd have to go back in and put some pipe to make sure that you don't collect, because otherwise then you just have a bathtub full of sand with
right
in it. It doesn't go anywhere. So the challenges of the early years on the sand cap was all of your low lying areas around all of our drain basins. We developed some black layer because it's hard to keep the water where you want it. So your lows are getting soaked, but your high areas are really drying out.
Yeah.
And we had, we really did a lot of unique stuff with the Toro irrigation, like precision sense and turf guard sensors all over the property. And we really found a way to irrigate that property, which is pretty unique. I mean, by soil moisture.
Yeah. Did you know that going in, or was this all by hit or miss?
That was something that
planned.
We worked with John Dahlman and his team at Toro to put the whole system together, which I feel like gave the property a unique or a uniformity and helped us not to overwater and manage the water at the property. We just didn't have enough water.
Yeah.
So to deliver the product that we want, right? To meet the expectation with limited water, it was really the first time that I'd ever been around something that we were that precise with irrigation.
And the Toro guys were the guys that did the actual layout of that, or the initial design, so that you were hitting the right spots.
Yeah, so they had a precision sense audit, and I don't know. I mean, you've heard of it, and basically monitor the property. It looks like an air fryer with some probes on it, and you scan the property with it, and it gives you a number of readings from compaction, soil moisture, mostly volumetric water content, and some shade stuff. But really, we used it for moisture sensor.
Right. I mean, that technology is fascinating. And think about
it really is. Absolutely. And once John Dahlman didn't do the design of the irrigation system, that was a different company. But what we did with him was taking the data that we got from the precision sense analysis and building irrigation zones based off of volumetric water content, and then dropping sensors all over to see what an irrigation cycle does in a given area. And what was unique, what I found very surprising about it was scary accurate. If we started to dry the golf course down, it would start to dry out, like where we just kind of cut off the water.
Yeah.
Especially when we were figuring it out and testing all of this stuff, it really, the audit was very accurate. Like,
oh, that's pretty cool.
It was pretty cool. It was.
Really, and that's clearly got to be the way we're going. I mean, we did it here at Hillcrest. Did you?
It took some time because they weren't using the technology that much anymore. It was one of those things that after I didn't have it, I was like, how do we water this? And this is a rainbird system, so it was a little bit of a, I had to figure out some of it. I mean, John Dahlman still helped, but it was not as seamless when you don't have that, making that technology work for rainbird.
So let's talk about Hillcrest. You decided to get the heck out of Northern California and go down to where the pretty people are and the movie stars are, and hang out with the rich folk. And
absolutely,
you're now one of them. I mean, look at you.
I had this celebrity.
When's your movie coming out? I heard you got some gig somewhere, right? You're going to be a movie star and star in maybe the new sitcom about superintendents. I think it'd be a great sitcom.
It would be a great sitcom, although no one would understand it.
No, but it would be funny. It would be funny. Think of all the characters that we could put together, as a sitcom in a golf course maintenance shop. So talk about Hillcrest. I mean, tell us about the course. I mean, not many people know that property, but it's it's pretty...
you're right. Not many people know it. There is definitely no sign on the door. It's
exactly
a 100-year-old club that's really has. It's a very private place, but they decided that they wanted to renovate the golf course, and we have a really great team here between the GM and the director of golf. They really, really pushed for a renovation for the golf course for the membership here, and it was, fence line to fence line renovation.
Oh, really? It was that big?
It was arguably as significant of a change as like a cow club, because they just wiped the slate clean from the old course. And then
did you take a lot of trees down?
Yeah, there was a lot of trees removed. The whole property was tree lined and shoots, and so
they got them all down. I hope you took them all down, right?
Not all of them. I
Oh.
wish. No, there's a couple of Ukes that I won't. I'm hoping they fall down, but maybe no luck. Yeah, so
Lightning.
it was Kyle Phillips is the architect.
Great
Project, and it came out great. We have a 18-hole golf course.
Kyle did the Cal Club.
Yeah, he did.
Did you know? You didn't know him from then because you weren't there.
No,
then.
Actually, it's funny because when I saw him on this job, I said I met you once before, and he had said, "Oh, really? Where?" I said, "It was your first site visit to the Cal Club." And I said hello, and it was like my last day at the Cal Club.
Oh, see a kid
get out at Olympic. Yeah,
yeah.
Like,
see a kid get out of my way.
And then
I got work to do.
To be working with him, and
that was great.
He's a great guy to work with. He had a really a great vision for the property to take it from what it was to what it is now. And
how much change? I mean, was there a lot of earth moving change? I mean, was there a lot of? Did you reroute
I can't
anything?
remember the cubic yards of it, but there was so the whole property was kikuyu grass, and bent grass greens. So they wanted to change the grassing plan, and so the part of the project was to rip off the top 3 inches of the property and all the kikuyu and all of any organic material that was there, and strip that out and haul it away and start over.
Wow.
So So, which at this point has been a great strategy on keeping the kikuyu grass out, but it's very challenging. You're on subgrade as far as growing grass on. But those are the challenges we have, and the amount of soil that was moved on this property.
There was a lot of movement.
Some soil samples, and I remember your comment. Are you sand capping?
Yeah. We should have pulled some of those up because those are some of the classic soil samples that I've seen in my career.
Yeah,
they were great.
But but to talk about the transformation of the property, it was a 18-hole facility with a short driving range, very small. We went from that to an 18-hole facility, full-size driving range, and a 5-hole short course.
Wow, so where'd you find all that land?
Well, I don't think anybody knew how much land was here once you started clearing some trees and utilizing every inch of it.
There you go.
There were some nursery areas and native areas that weren't being utilized. So every inch of this property is golf course.
Yeah.
Obviously, aside from the clubhouse and tennis courts.
So you didn't knock down some old ladies' houses down around the corner or anything like that?
No, none of that.
Get the driving range done there.
No, it was. So the transformation on the property, it's one of those you would never recognize if you saw it first.
Tell everybody where you exactly are. I mean, you're in the heart of LA, right? Yeah,
we're in West Los Angeles. Yeah. Right around Beverly Hills, Cheviot Hills area, Century City. So it's in the middle of the city, and if you drove by it, you'd never know it was
you wouldn't even see it. You wouldn't even know it was there.
Nope, it wouldn't. And there's actually adjoining property is Rancho Park, which is a golf course and public tennis facilities. The public golf course is the busiest golf course in LA. I think they do almost 100,000 rounds a year out of that place.
And that's part of you guys?
No, it's just
it's right
adjacent property. It's right next to it. So if you drive by this, you think the whole thing is Rancho Park, and
I see.
Half of this footprint is actually Hillcrest.
How old is Hillcrest? It was built.
2020 was the centennial celebration.
Who was the original architect?
Willie Watson.
Okay. Oh, that's not bad. So it's been a named course. I mean, it's really probably the best kept secret in all of LA. I mean,
I would think so. I mean, it's really known for food and social gatherings, and there was a lot of celebrity history here as well.
Yeah, I'm sure. Has it become popular as a golf course now? I mean, you've been open now for what, a year?
We opened in October of 2019.
Oh, so you got open. I keep forgetting this timeline. You did get open right before COVID, so you didn't really have to go through the COVID thing during construction. I always, because
we just went through what would be 20 inches of rain during construction. The only time it hasn't rained since.
Yeah,
because we closed it up and stopped raining.
Yeah. By the way, since we started talking, we've had at least 3 inches of rain, and that's why that alarm went off on my phone. So just so you know, we've been sitting here for an hour, and I think I've gotten 3 inches of rain, and it's just coming down in buckets. I can hear it pounding on the roof of my.
Yeah, you just try to make me jealous.
I'm just exactly. I mean, I'd send you some, but I don't think it'll work very well. but now of course everybody sprayed earlier this morning around here because it's still 85, 90 degrees, and it's going to be an ugly couple of days. So you should be happy that you're in LA with no rain. And
well, we would say that, but we don't have the rain, but we have been having in the last 2 months really unseasonably hot and humid weather.
Oh, have you really? Yeah.
Yeah. For this property, we have we're fairly close to the coast, call it 5 miles, so we do get a marine effect.
The breeze, yeah.
The humidity is up, but it has been warmer. There was a few mornings I came in here and I just kind of got the old reminder of
that's what humidity feels like. Yeah.
Working at Cattail, and I said,
yeah. And that was one of the worst humidities. Cattail is a pretty, it's a humid place, man. It's pretty nasty.
The 6th green or legendary.
How would you describe the growing at Hillcrest? Was it I mean, you've now at this point you've done it 2 or 3 times.
Yeah. Oh, I think that Hillcrest was really, really challenging.
Yeah.
We have some really challenging soil conditions.
Yes,
here.
You do.
And a lot of it
should have shown some.
Yeah. I mean, I think it was also the rough here is ryegrass.
Yeah.
So we were part of the weather causing delays in the construction. We suddenly had to be seeding ryegrass in June, July, and August.
Yeah.
It's a difficult thing to do, and we sodded Bermuda grass on the whole property for the fairways. So that was really the soil conditions here, and the water quality aren't the best. So those 2 challenges, and with the heat and humidity of getting the place grown in, it was a challenge. But the Pure Distinction bentgrass was one of the quickest to come in that I've ever worked with.
Yeah, I was just on a property last week, and they were growing that, and they were saying how fast it came in. I didn't realize Pure Distinction was that quick. I mean, it was. Yeah. I was overwhelmed at how quick it was, and I remember you telling me that, and I actually shared that story. I was out in Texas, and they were using some of it, and it was quite impressive. Was this an easier growing because you've done it so many times, or are they equally challenging in their own right?
Well, they're all unique in their own right, but this one I found to be particularly challenging because of the weather and soil conditions. And I mean, we had our, like, Poppy Hills had its limited water, but the rest of the soups stepped up and made my life a little easier growing it in. This one was one of those that all of that, I had to use every bit of the experience that I had to really make this successful and open well in October under a tight timeline. So there was a lot of calls back east to
how do you do this again?
Hey, refresh my memory, or what do you think? And it's one of those things that I realized that, I kind of looking at a career just past what it is on your resume is that it's all the network that you've built. Right, a lot of it comes out of the Olympic Club, and a lot of it comes from my own work experience.
Yeah, you got your phone. I'd love to see your phone list. I mean, you've got
that was imperative to a lot of the success we had here at Hillcrest was a lot of those phone calls that everybody picked up the phone. There was a few that I didn't even know if they would still answer the phone after long since I talked to them, but it was good to realize that you have friends in this business and that there is that camaraderie that they want you to be successful.
I think that's truly, at the end of the day, the best part of this business is that, people everybody wants everybody to succeed, because everybody knows how hard this is, from both sides of the desk. And, I love that part of this business. And and obviously, getting to chat with people like you, especially, somebody that we've got such a long, our paths have crossed so many different times and so many different people, but that's the nice thing about this. And then you can pick up a phone and call somebody and say, hey, you want to get on the podcast this afternoon? Oh, okay.
Sure.
Something like this. So what's your life like now? I see some fine artwork on the wall behind you. I assume that's not yours. There you go. Look at that.
That's our irrigation map.
Oh, is that what that is?
Yeah, no.
I've seen worse.
Nope, married with 2 baby girls, one a 6-year-old, and we have an 8-month-old who just
congratulations, my friend.
Who
I hope
arrived during COVID. So that was.
Oh yeah, that must. I'm sure there's a story in there that we'll share for another day. But I'm thrilled for you, and I'm sure that's a lot of fun, and I'm sure it keeps you busy among them. All the other things that you're doing. And remember, they never leave. I can tell you that as experience. So.
If they could stay 6 years old, then that would be so bad.
I've always said, there should be a product that you can spray on the kids at that age, a growth regulator that just shuts them down. Life would be wonderful, because what happens is they become 21 and they're living in your guest room. And it's like, wait a second, I can't have guests anymore because of this. And I hope my son's not listening to this. I'm sure he's not. But Matt, I can't thank you enough. We've talked for about an hour, so I'm gonna hang up on you. And but I want to say thank you for joining us, and again thank Laura Beth again. Having spent some time with us, but it really has been a lot of fun working with you. I mean, the Jersey attitude is always it's always fun when you can chat with somebody and laugh and have some good time. And like I said, you've got a lot of fun people on your resume that we've all known well. So
absolutely,
I'm excited for you. And is there another construction project down the road? I mean, I know you don't want to say this on tape with Hillcrest people listening, but it seems like you just are a masochist and you want to get out there and keep doing these things and moving around.
No, there is not any new constructions in
you like in LA?
I do like LA. Yeah. I mean, now that it's open.
Yeah. Right. Is it open?
Yeah, a lot of it's open, and hopefully it stays open. But it's happy to be back in an urban environment. Poppy Hills was a great place to work. The surrounding areas were a little lacking in things for people to do.
I remember you saying that many times. I got to find something. Yeah. Exactly. I got to find something to do. So are you a Rams fan now? Did you become
No. I'm still a New York Giants fan. So
thank you. Next time you come out, I own 6 seats on the Giant Stadium. So
good.
You're always welcome. And maybe they'll have a real team again. But yeah, if you ever decide to come back east, let me do it on a weekend when they're in town, and I'll make sure you get on the stadium, and
I'll plan that. Thank you, Joel.
Matt, appreciate it. Thank you so much for joining us. It was a real pleasure, and thanks for all your support over these years.
All right. Okay. Have a good one.
And that is the Earthworks podcast. And if you're not a subscriber, please be a subscriber and join us, because we'll send you notes and let you know who's coming up next, and you can see what's going on here. But thank you, everybody, for listening to the Earthworks podcast.